good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening to you. For good and wonderful people of the tube. Hope today, hope you're feeling grand and all well in your world. Welcome to the Q&A Sunday, number 2. So let's dive in, shall we? So, question 1 today is... Oh, by the way, if anyone's curious about the guitar in the intro jam, it's this one. This is a Fender Vintera that I got recently. I have done a review on it in its original form. It didn't come looking like this. It's a guitar I'm still working on because it's wasn't that good. Anyway, enough on that for now. You'll see that in the future and whatnot. Anyway, let's get waffling in questions. So, question 1 today is, what do you think about Hillel Slovak? Also, do you like the first 3 Chili Peppers albums? I do like the first 3 albums. Like I say, they're not my favourites. They're not kind of like, they're not going to knock Californication off. If I had a choice between listening between them, you know what I mean? They're not going to knock Californication off that list easy, or at all. But I do like them. They are, and it's cool because you can kind of hear it's like it's a band trying to find its feet and its sound. And same goes for Hillel, really. I mean, I love Hillel's playing, not as much as John's, because, it just, it's a little bit more erratic than John's. John tried to replicate that kind of erratic nature in Mother's Milk, and it wasn't really him. I don't think John's that kind of thing, but John being a massive fan of Hillel, you can see why he was trying to do that. And also to fit into the band, it makes sense. But yeah, Hillel's playing was very unique, and he's just one of those tragic figures in music of just somebody who never got the chance to grow and evolve, and never will get a chance to evolve and grow, and it's just sad. That's just really sad, and just like, what could he have done, Curious question is, like, would John Frusciante be what he is now without Hillel passing away? It's a weird... The world moves in a very mysterious fashion, people of the tube, and like, it never goes the way you want it or think it will go. It just messes with your head. And Hillel's one of those people that like had so much to give and was just not allowed to, wasn't destined to. I don't think, for one reason or another. It is what it is, and we just have to accept it. Same as people like Nick Drake and Cliff Burton, Jeff Buckley. All these people who do something great, but that's all they ever do. They'll do like, Jeff Buckley did 1 album, Nick Drake did 1 album. Cliff Burton started carving a path for himself in kind of like, that in that metal, thrash metal with Metallica, and the stuff he was writing, that kind of like orchestral kind of stuff, and the way he would play bass, started carving this kind of corner for themselves to only have it snuffed out in an instant. And it's just like, it's just sad. It's just really sad. And but it happens, the world is not the world is cruel, and it doesn't care if you have the best intentions or anything like that, really, and sadly neither do some people. It's tough, and Hillel's just another one of those on that list. Robert Johnson, Jimi Hendrix. The list goes on of musicians that kind of we should have got more from, and we never will. And it's just the way it is. And Paul Hillel's in that list, and it's a very long list. But yeah, I mean, I love his playing, and like I say, he really paved the way for what John would be in Mother's Milk, not so much later on. Once John got to Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic, there's no real Hillel left in Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic, in my opinion. It's very much John starting to evolve into John. And then when like Californication came out, John was John as we know him. But Hillel never got that chance. He never got to grow. He will always be what he was. And I think there's like a strange beauty in that, but there's also a lot of sadness in that. Same as Kurt Cobain. Kurt never got to grow as a songwriter and a singer, and as a result of that, like, who knows where it could have gone. I feel robbed by this sometimes. I really do feel robbed. I feel like the world stole things. and or whatever it is that's in charge of doing this kind of thing, stole things. I mean, maybe it's meant to be. I don't know. I mean, who knows? But yeah, it's a weird thing that is. And again, Tangent Boys back, everybody. But yeah, I think very highly of Hillel and what he did on the first couple of Chili Peppers albums, and again what he kind of like paved the way for and stuff like that is really, really cool. So you can't really, you just wish they hadn't done what they did. But again, if they hadn't left and done what they did, would certain things be in the place now? Would the Chili Peppers be what they are now? Because rightly thinking, if Hillel hadn't died, John would have never come in. Which means Mother's Milk would have never happened. Which means Blood Sugar Sex Magic would have happened. Which means Under the Bridge never happened. You know what I mean? It's a strange Back to the Future Emmett Brown thing going on there. It's kind of mental to think about. But same as Kurt Cobain. If Kurt Cobain hadn't died, would his music would live forever, especially songs like Smells Like Teen Spirit and Come As You Are and stuff like that. They would live forever. They're timeless. But would Nirvana be as humongous as it is now? I mean, I still think they're one of the biggest bands of the 90s, so they'd be big. But you know what I mean? It makes you wonder where he would have gone with it, because he was kind of very disillusioned by it all and disenfranchised by it all. Didn't want to do what they wanted from him. And it makes you wonder about Jeff Buckley as well. If you've heard the kind of Sketches album, it's technically his second album, but it's just demos. He was going in a different direction. It didn't sound like Grace. It's different. And who knows where Hillel would have gone? Who knows where Jimi Hendrix would have gone? All sorts of players and musicians. Who knows where they would have gone? Anyway, hope it's answered your question. I'm going to move on to question 2 now, and that got very deep very fast, which is the mindset I'm in, people with YouTube, at this point in time, and I have been for a while now. And to be honest with you, I don't really know who I am at this point in time. Anyway, let's move on to question 2. So, what made you love Jimi Hendrix's playing? Jimmy comes up. Favorite Jimi, and what's your Jimi Hendrix guitar lick / move? What was it about Jimi Hendrix's playing? It was just how he was connected to. It's not the pyrotechnic kind of playing of his, although I do love that, the Star Spangled Banner Woodstock thing of just wanging the tremolo arm and dive bombs and all that kind of stuff, and also feedback, use of feedback and how to use it. It was just how when Jimmy played a guitar, there was no distance between him and the guitar. The guitar wasn't a guitar. Jimi Hendrix wasn't Jimi Hendrix. They were one. You know what I mean? They were just an entity. They just blended together to make one. And the best example of that is the best guitar solo and the best guitar performance that's ever been, which is, in my opinion, Machine Gun. It's just my opinion. I know loads of people have got different opinions on that, but for me, Machine Gun will never be beaten because it's just so incredibly powerful and moving and moody and just nails what he was trying to say. It's just so powerful. And again, you can't do that with a guitar, piano, drums, bass, violin, whatever, unless you are one with the instrument. You can't get to that level of emotion and playing if you aren't one with your instrument. And that's what I strive to do. And Jimmy taught me that. Funny enough, Jimmy taught me that more than John Frusciante did. I take this more from Jimmy than I do John. But the idea of the guitar is just an extension of your being. It's not a piece of wood with wires on it and electronics that makes noise. It's an extension of you. And I've said this a lot, the guitar can scream when you can't. It can cry when you can't. It can express everything you are when you can't do it. And it really can, and so can other instruments. People can do it on drums, people can do it on bass, people can do it on piano, violin, but it takes a lot to do it, and it also takes a lot of submission on your part. You have to submit to music, and sometimes that's quite hard for people to do because people are afraid of looking stupid, or it's like, you know, it's nonsense or whatever, it's hippie rubbish or whatever, this and the other. But I don't think it is, because, well, I know it's not, because as soon as I started just kind of like not seeing the guitar as a guitar, but every time I play it, it's just a part of me, and it just, things come out of it that are inside me. That was when my playing really started to change, and I started being less concerned with stuff like technique and being the best guitar player in the world and like being really fast and showy or whatever, and trying to be like, you know, trying to upstage people, to just basically going, this is just me, you know, and I'm going to express me through this. I'm not going to show off. I'm not going to try and impress people. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm literally just going to be, when I play the guitar, all you're hearing is me. You're hearing my inner self. You know what I mean? And sometimes my inner self is ugly and nasty and horrible and harsh, and then sometimes it's really delicate and soft and sad. You know what I mean? But you've got to be able to channel that. And again, I got all this through Jimi Hendrix. You know, and John does the same thing, and Peter Green does the same thing, but I got it all through Jimmy. Jimmy really paved the way for me to become one with these things, you know. It was the idea of, when, like I say, when you play it, every note is, it's like me talking now. That is just a sentence. That's just a sentence again, and they've got to mean something. And there shouldn't be a disconnect between this and you. You know, you shouldn't feel like, you know, this is. I don't like it when people go, "Oh, it's a tool." Fair enough if you want to view it that way, that's cool. If you want to view it as a tool, as a whatever it is, that's fine. But to me, this isn't a tool. This is me expressing who I am and speaking a language that I actually understand more so than English. You know, I understand this more than I do this. And this makes more sense to me than the world. You know what I mean? Like, you know, what comes out of this thing and speakers and pedals and sound makes more sense. And again, that all comes from Jimmy, and understanding, like, you know, this is not just, this isn't a tool, this isn't something I like, you know, it's like, this is so, like, all these things have something to them. An example as well, like, you know, I know people say, well, you need to get the right tool for the right job, and I understand that kind of thing. Like, you know, if you want a certain sound, you need this, you do all that, but I mean, it's really hard to explain this, so it makes any sense. But it is, I'll just keep coming back to it. It's an extension of who you are, and I don't like the idea of it just kind of like being, oh, it's just a guitar. Yeah, it's just a tool. You know, this does this, that does that. You know what I mean? It feels weird to me to label a guitar in such a way, because, and again, I think that's mainly because, as well, guitar basically saved my life. I wouldn't even be here if it weren't for these things in the first place. But yeah, but from Jimmy, like, especially Machine Gun. As soon as I heard Machine Gun, the world changed, and I was just like, that's something else. Jimmy doesn't move. There's no pyrotechnics really. It's just a man expressing. It's just pure emotion coming out of his guitar, and the way his guitar sounds, and use of univibe and the wah pedal and the fuzz, and just the nastiness. But then, like, there's a gentle side to it, and a like, you know, it's so powerful and emotional, and you can't really go wrong with that. You know what I mean? You really can't. And so Jimmy means a lot to me because he taught me all that, and also kind of like his playing. He's just like, again, it's whisper to a scream like Peter Green, but I wasn't supposed to rhyme, but it did. But it's a bit different than that. You know, Jimmy was kind of like, it was like nasty to gentle. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Peter is whisper to a scream, definitely, because he could do that thing. Whereas Jimmy had this kind of like, you know, with all the dive bombs and the really kind of harsh feedback kind of stuff, You know, that's the nasty side of it. But then, like, you get stuff like Little Wing, which is the more gentle side, and stuff like 1983, the song Where It Goes, you know, it's crazy. And the soundscapes, you know, Jimmy doing all this kind of stuff, which you won't be able to hear, but like when he's picking behind the note and dive bombing the guitar, that kind of thing. And he was doing like things on the guitar that no one had ever done before and wouldn't be doing now if it wasn't for Jimmy. You know, that's an argument I've had with lots of guitar players saying like, you know, oh, somebody else would have done it. No, they wouldn't, because they hadn't. You know what I mean? And I think it took Jimmy to show us the way. It's the same as like, you know, Django Reinhardt came on to show us the way. Robert Johnson came to show us the way. Muddy Waters, B.B. King, and Jimi Hendrix, then Eddie Van Halen, and then you get other people like, you know, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Buckethead, Paul Gilbert, you know, all these other players, Yngwie Malmsteen. They show you different ways, and they find different things that this can do. But fundamentally, it all comes back down. The electric guitar, to me, fundamentally comes back down to Jimi Hendrix, of what he was able to achieve with this thing in such a short period of time. We are still playing catch up now, you know, in my opinion. You know, some people get closer than others, but it is what it is. Anyway, but yeah, that's what made me love Jimmy's playing. You know, in long form, it's just that, again, that pure connection to the guitar, where it isn't a guitar anymore, it's just part of being. It's just like an entity, you just as one. And music is just flowing. And again, I always say that to people, it's like, you know, you've got to submit to music, you've got to let it drive you, you've got to let it take you where it wants to go, and don't question it, because it always knows better than you do. You know, and it'll tell you what it wants. You know, I remember when we were recording Red Giant's album, and there's a song on that album called Tell Me, and in the quiet bit at the end, the first kind of like quiet section of the bass solo, I could hear these noises, and I knew exactly what it was. It was a particle verb effect off the Line 6 HX, and all I wanted was this kind of like kind of weird noise. I could hear it in my head. I knew exactly what I wanted, and I knew exactly where I wanted to be, and I got Karina to do it for me. I said, like, could you please indulge me and just kind of like, you know, put particle verb on, get rid of all the dry signal, and just like make it completely washed out with this particle verb effect, and just hit your strings when on the start of it, and let it kind of tail out, and you can kind of hear it on the album if you listen really closely. There's all this kind of weird noises going on behind, and I could hear them, and I was like, but again, being connected to music means sometimes you don't play it, because that wasn't for me to play those parts. That was for Karina to play those parts. I wasn't supposed to play them bits, but I was supposed to guide her and tell her that's what's needed, because it was being channeled through. So there's kind of like a sharing kind of like thing going on there, where it's kind of like music's beaming it to me to tell somebody else what to do. You know what I mean? To say, we need this because we can't get through to that person for whatever reason. So we're going to tell you to tell that person. And that does happen. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that does happen. Yeah, it happened when we were doing pre-production for the album. That happened between, like, you know, John Joe would come up with an idea of saying, like, why don't we do this? And Karina would come up with an idea and say, well, why don't we do that? Because music was beaming things to different people, because they couldn't get to me, or they couldn't get to John Joe, or they couldn't get to Karina. You know, it was one of those things. And so you've got to submit. You just got to kind of give up to it. You know what I mean? Don't fight it, and just let it be what it'll be. Anyway, yeah, if that makes any kind of sense. But that's what made me love Jimi Hendrix. Was like, that was the first time I really, because the first time I saw Jimmy play was a Woodstock video. My auntie had videotaped off Sky Art, I think it was, like in 2004, would that have been? I'm guessing it's about 2004. She had videoed, recorded off TV, Jimmy's set at Woodstock for me on video, VHS, and I've still got that video somewhere. It's not the full set, but it's kind of like a condensed thing. And I was watching him going, there's no separation. You know, he is the guitar and the guitar is him, and as a result of that, they are one, and music is just flowing through him. And he looks funny sometimes, especially at Woodstock, where he's like this, like that, you know, like where he's just going off it. And a lot of people don't want to look like that. I've had that before with bands and people where they're like, I've got to look cool all the time, so this is not cool. No, but you shouldn't be thinking like that. Because you make those faces and stuff like that when you're totally unconscious of making them. You don't know you're doing it. It's just part of it, you know. And I don't know. I make the faces I make when I play, but I do because there's video and photo evidence. But to me, when I'm playing, my face is totally normal. I'm not aware of anything I do with my face because I'm unconscious to my playing because I'm just submitted to music. Music is just taking the strings, no pun intended. But I'm a marionette. That's all I am. I'm a marionette to music. And that's all we should be as musicians. And then Jimi Hendrix taught me that. Favourite Jimi Hendrix guitar lick? There's too many. There is so many guitar licks that I love of Jimi Hendrix and that I have stolen over the years and incorporated into my own playing. I couldn't pick one. It'd be impossible. Anyway, I'm going to move on to question 3 now. Okay. Question 3 is, do you like Aeroplane by the Red Hot Chili Peppers? Yes and no. It's not my favourite song. It's a good song. Flea's bass playing is standout for me, though. The song itself is great, but it's only great because of Flea. My own opinion. You know what I mean? Dave's guitar playing and his guitar solo are really, really cool. Anthony's vocals and the way he delivers it are really, really cool. Chad's drums are great. Flea's the beast in that song. It's like a lot of new Chili Peppers stuff, like What You Thinking and stuff like that. Flea's bass playing is just... It's just levelling up. You know what I mean? That man is a monster. And again, coming back to the Jimi Hendrix thing, excuse me, there's no separation between him and his bass. They are one. You know what I mean? And you can see it when he plays, you know, and the way he moves so freely with a bass. You know, it's a bigger instrument. Flea's not exactly a big guy. But the way he moves so freely with it and what he's able to do on it and so fluidly and easily, it really is just one. And he just lets music come through him. And things just come out of him. And you can see he's totally open to anything music has to offer to him. If music goes, what do you think to this? He's like, let's give it a go. You know what I mean? He's not closed down to it at all. And I think that's really important. And on stuff like Aeroplane, his playing is just standout. You know, the bass solo over slap part, the way he plays in the choruses, and it's just like there's a slide at one point which is just like perfect. And Flea to me is one of the all-time best bass players that's ever been and will ever be. And he's criminally underrated, and people they tar him with like tie him to like one thing and tar him with one brush, and it's just kind of like, ugh. He's so much more than that. Just because, like, you know, he's not doing tappy kind of stuff and this, that, and the other. No, he's not. But he's making music, and that's what it comes down to. Because fundamentally, you can have the best technique in the world, but if you can't write a decent song, what's the point? In my opinion, technique only gets you so far. You know what I mean? Like, you can stand in front of a crowd of 50,000 people and shred to your heart's content and do all your amazing techniques and, oh, look at me, how amazing I am. And not make an effect. And then you can stand on stage and you can play a song you've written about something you've experienced, and it can change the world for some people. Not everyone, but some. You know what I mean? And it's kind of... I can't remember... There's a line, I swear it's a line, it's like, you know, it's like something like, you know... I can't remember what it is, but it's all about kind of like the difference in difference in playing. Like, technique just dazzles people. It's like it's like, you know, punching somebody in the face constantly. Like, it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. It's kind of all like, you know, you just kind of like smashing people in the face with this kind of like, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And then there's a song, you know, and I would much rather listen to Wonderwall than For the Love of God. You know what I mean? And it's as simple as that, because songs do more for me than guitar technique. And again, coming back to Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy taught me that I don't have to be Mr. Technique. And then Jerry Cantrell taught me that I want to be a songwriter more than I want to be a flash guitar player. I want to be able to write music, and I want to be able to channel music. I don't want to be the most flashy, amazing guitar player, and I'm not, and I'm okay with that. I want to be able to write songs. I want to be able to pick up a guitar string chords together and write songs and create albums of music. Sorry about that, people. Got interrupted. But yeah, I want to be that. You know, Jimi Hendrix taught me to be one with an instrument. Joe Control taught me I wanted to be a songwriter. You know, and people like Devin Townsend have followed that line as well. Like, Devin Townsend's an amazingly flash guitar player if he wants to be. He chooses not to be, because it's all about writing music, not being, look at me, look at me. And that's really important to me. It really is. Like, you know, when I was coming up with guitar solos for the Red Giant album, they had to be melodic. Some were just kind of like, you know, just go for it. But certain ones like Monsters, Dark of Me, Free Me, Was It All My Fault and stuff like that, they had to be a certain way. I would not be able to sleep at night if I just shredded over it and just kind of done whatever I did. It would have made a mess of the songs. And it's all part of just letting music flow, you know what I mean? All this off, like, what did you think to Aeroplane off Red Hot Chili Peppers? Have you missed Tangent Boy, people of the tube? Anyway, but yeah, so do you like Aeroplane? Yeah, but Flea's the standout player for that, because again, it's that thing. I've loved watching musicians who are just one with their instrument. They're not trying to be anything other than the best musician they can be at that point in time. And I love the fact that Flea can write. You know, I love the fact that I get more from people who write songs than people that cover songs or try and wow you with technique. You know, it's cool. I still love Yngwie Malmsteen and Steve Vai and Buckethead and Paul Gilbert and people like that, but they're not going to knock people like Jimi Hendrix, John Frusciante, Peter Green, Rory Gallagher, Mike McCready off the top spot for me. They're not even close. They're not even in the top 10. You know, and I don't think it ever will be. I owe Yngwie Malmsteen a lot to my guitar playing, because I got more dexterity by learning his solos. You know what I mean? I was learning Yngwie stuff in my second year of playing guitar. I found Yngwie. A guy told me about Yngwie, and I just fell in love with his playing. And basically, for about a year, I played nothing but Yngwie, and I could play Far Beyond the Sun, I could play Black Star and Guitar Trilogy Suite and Rising Force and all this kind of other stuff, and I could play so much Yngwie stuff, and it gave me so much dexterity and, like, you know, that ability to do that. And when it came back to, like, you know, going back and learning John Frusciante stuff and Jimi Hendrix stuff and all the stuff I've learned subsequently, having that dexterity's really helped. You know, I'm more of a legato player than Yngwie. Yngwie picks everything. I don't like picking every note. I spoke about this in a live stream recently. Whereas I don't like the sound of every note being picked. I know some people pick every note. Joe Bonamassa, Yngwie, Tom Bukovac. They pick every note. I don't like that. And again, I love legato. And I got that from Dave Murray. I learned legato from Dave Murray because I love how fluid Dave plays. And I found out he plays legato style. So I picked that up from Dave. Again, all of these influences on me come to develop who I am as a player. You know, and I just prefer the sound of legato. It flows. It's more. It's prettier to me than picking every note. Look, I can't. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can explain this very well, but you know, you can kind of. You can pick every note like that, but I always feel it's kind of... somebody worded this perfectly on a live stream the other day, where it said legato is walking down the stairs, whereas picking every note is falling down the stairs. And it does kind of feel like that to me. If I kind of like do a descending run, like picking every note... that was terrible, but you get the idea. It's... You hear every note, whereas legato... It's got so much more of a flow, especially going up. I love that more than... You know, that is too jerky for me. There's no flow to it. It doesn't feel like it's... It needs to feel like water to me, flowing. It needs to feel like that. It needs to feel... When you look at a river and you see it flowing, it needs to feel like that. This doesn't feel like that. This does. That feels way better to me than, you know, and that's cool. But and I do that occasionally, but I much prefer the legato. I much prefer that. Much prefer that. That just feels way better to me than picking every note. Every note feels really strange to me. I just don't like the way it sounds. I don't like the way it feels. I'm much more of a legato fiend. And again, thanks Dave Murray for that one, because that's who I learned that of. I learned to pick every note from Yngwie, and then when I got into Dave Murray and found out how he was doing it, and I was like, I like that so much more, and it just became part of me. Anyway, should we move on to question 4, PeopleTube? This is going to be the last question of the day. Oh, Tangent Boy's back. Anyway, I kind of miss Tangent Boy, to be perfectly honest with you, PeopleTube. I love talking unconsciously. Again, this is another thing. I'm talking unconsciously. I'm not analysing what I say. I'm not overanalyzing what I say. I'm just speaking because this is what I believe. You know what I mean? And when you know what you want to say, you don't question it. You just say it, you know, and it is what it is, you know what I mean? Anyway, let's move on to the last question today, question 4. So, what are your favourite songs on the Red Hot Chili Peppers' latest albums, Unlimited Love and Return of a Dream Canteen? So, not many, to be perfectly honest with you. Unlimited Love, I did like Black Summer. I still like Black Summer. That's a really, really good song. What You Thinking is a great song. That's really grown on me. I wasn't sure where I was with some of these songs to start with. I still don't like it as an album. It's still not one of my favourite albums, and I still think it's kind of a bit lazy in certain respects. I don't particularly like some of it. Some of it's okay. I don't think it's great, my opinion. Again, doesn't mean anything to anybody but me, so there's no point getting angry at it, because if you love it, what does it matter what I think? It doesn't. So, but Unlimited Love's got some good songs on it, but they're not great and they're not brilliant. And I don't really listen to them. I do love What You Thinking. I think that's brilliant. I do like Black Summer, although I don't like John's improvised guitar solos in Black Summer. I feel Black Summer's guitar solo on the album is so strong and such a part of the song that it shouldn't really be changed, and I don't think he's bettered the album version live. And what I've seen, he seems to kind of get a bit confused. It seems to be kind of like go off in these weird directions. I just don't think it sounds very good, because, like, you know, you've got that and then moves up the octave. It's such an iconically gorgeous melodic guitar solo, and every time I watched them do it live on YouTube, I was always expecting it, and then he'd come in with something else and start high, and it just kind of detracted from the song. And I know John does that anyway, and, like, you know, it is hard to kind of do the same solo and over again. But I think if a song requires it, if a song goes, this is what you do it. Slash can't change the Sweet Child of Mine solo. It would be weird, you know. Trying to think of others. Bohemian Rhapsody, you can't randomly just do a different guitar solo over Bohemian Rhapsody, can you? And there's so many others like that, you know. Let me try and think of another one off the top of my head. Just going, I can't do it. All Right Now, you know. I think there's parts of All Right Now that have to be in there, so certain bits you can't change. And, you know, there are certain guitar solos that you cannot change and should not change. And Black Summer's one of those ones where I'm like, just do the album on, John. I don't think you can beat that. It's too good. It's too good, and it fits so perfectly. You know, and especially the end where you... What? You know, that is so good, the way it ends. You know, it really builds to a crescendo and then just falls off a cliff. It's great. Absolutely wicked. But unfortunately, he's never really bettered that, in my opinion. So yeah, Unlimited Love was a bit of a miss for me. You know, and it always will be a miss for me. They're the only two I can think of that I like. What You Thinking and Black Summer. I couldn't really get anything else. Return of a Dream Canteen was better, in my opinion. Although I still don't think it's a particularly strong album. I don't really feel it should have been a double album. I feel Return of a Dream Canteen, what they should have done, I don't know whose idea it was. I don't know if it was the label's idea or it was their idea to release a double album. It should have been just a normal album of 10 to 12 songs, and they should have just narrowed it down to the better ones. Because I think if you got rid of some of the kind of weaker filler songs that are on Return of a Dream Canteen, you'd have one really good, strong album. I think there's some songs on there that just don't need to be part of an album. They're good B-sides, but that's about as far as it goes. But yeah, I love Bella. Bella is my favourite song off Return of a Dream Canteen. Obviously, there's Eddie, which is a fantastic song. That is such a great song, and that's just really. There's not a great deal going on in it, but it's the way it moves is really, really cool. Tip of My Tongue was a great song as well. I'm trying to think of. I can't. I'm so bad with song titles, people with you. I'm just literally. Let me just get a list up of the songs because I can't. Nope, come on. Let me get a list. Give me a discography. Track listing. Yeah, Tip of Tongue was a great song. I thought the drummer was rubbish, my opinion. The song La 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 La, just going to say. And there was a couple of others as well where it's just a bit like, meh. And it's a double album at 1 hour, 15 minutes. I mean, that's a bit weird. I think Stadium Arcadium's near enough 2 hours of music. I don't know. It should have just been a single album. Like it should have 10, 12 songs. Would have made a great album. I don't know why they decided to do it as a double album. Really confuses the hell out of me. But I preferred Return of a Dream Canteen. Return of a Dream Canteen was a way better album to Unlimited Love in my personal opinion. It seemed a little bit more focused. It seemed a little bit more on track. Not completely on track. It's still a bit off left field. But, and to be honest with you, I feel the driving force on these last two albums, and I'm going to mention him again, has not been John or Anthony or Chad. It's been Flea. Because Flea's playing on Return of a Dream Canteen and Unlimited Love is insane. If there was ever a reason to listen to those albums, it's Flea and his bass playing because it is outrageous. He really is. And I've said this before, and I will say it forever. I will go to my grave saying this. Those albums are great because of Flea. Not because of John, not because of Chad, and definitely not because of Anthony. It's not those three. It's Flea who's driving this. And, his bass playing is just inspired. You know what I mean? It really is. It's just something about his bass playing in those albums is just incredible. And he makes those albums, to me. He really does, I think John is very underconfident on these albums. He's playing it very safe, doing a lot of that and very simple kind of things guitar wise. That's cool. We know John Frusciante fans know what he's like. He just seems he doesn't feel very confident with what he's doing at this point in time, and that's cool. You can kind of expect it from him as well. It might take him a while to get back into it because towards the end of the tour, he was getting more and more confident, and then he broke his finger, and then he kind of got less confident when he came back, and he was just a bit more withdrawn. And these albums feel withdrawn. He feels very kind of pulled back, and Flea's more of the lead than John is. John's obviously got his guitar solos and stuff like that, but it still feels like he's on kind of half power because he's scared to go full power, which is cool. Totally understand that. Makes no sense. Makes complete sense. I think some of the lyrics are a bit childish and a bit stupid. They're not very interesting. They're not very cool. They're not like Scar Tissue and some of the other songs. And Anthony's capable of writing some incredible lyrics, but I feel they're just a bit kind of yeah, that'll do. Chad's drumming is fantastic and solid, but again, like I say, to me, as it always is, Chad's one of the best drummers of all time. But to me, like I say, Flea he is those albums. You know what I mean? He really, really is the reason to listen to those albums. You know, there's something incredible in there because of him. You know, his bass playing is just phenomenal. Anyway, there we go, PeopleTube. That's all the questions we have time for today. Yeah, anyway, thanks very much indeed for watching. I'm going to go into town today and see if I can buy Jerry Cantrell's new album. What was it? I Want Blood? Because it sounds amazing. I really need to get his other soul album as well. I can't remember what it was called. I'm just going to go on a bit of a music buying spree today, PeopleTube. And we go to a local record shop, independent record shop, and go a bit nuts. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this Q&A. Well, technically, that's yesterday, because this video's coming out on Sunday. I'm going into town today on Saturday. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this vid, and I'll see you again very soon for another one. I've still got loads of questions to get through on this initial thing. So once I get through them, you know, I'll ask you to submit some more if you can. That'd be great. So is there anything else I need to say? I don't think there is. Oh, by the way, also, if you like the channel and like what I do here, please consider becoming a patron at Patreon. I can't do this without my patrons at Patreon. I can't do it. It's impossible. YouTube at this point in time are absolutely crippling my channel. I don't know what I've done to upset them, but I've really upset the algorithm gods, and as a result of that, my channel is being punished horrifically for some reason. I don't know why, but here we are. So if you can support me on Patreon, link in the description below, I would really appreciate it. You know, it keeps me able to do this and create content and make videos for you, and it also helps the band as well, Red Giant. So if you like Red Giant, it really helps them as well, us as well. It's like I'm not part of it sometimes. Well, I feel weird like that, but that's a story for another time. But yeah, if you can, please consider it, because I would really appreciate it, and it really helps, you know, do what I do. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for watching. Yeah, I'll see you on next Friday. I was going to do another gaming video. I'm out gigging next week. I'm playing the 100 Club with Red Giant on Tuesday, and I've also got something with Red Giant's doing on Wednesday, which I can't talk about. It's not mass secret, but I don't want to say until it comes out, if that makes any sense. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for watching, and I'll see you again very soon for another one. Have a great morning, afternoon, good evening, and goodbye now. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, and also, if you could leave a like and a comment on this video, please do. Get me out of this weird algorithm jail that I seem to have found myself in for some reason. I don't really know why. Anyway, thank you very much indeed. See you later. Goodbye now.